Hello Year 4, this is Miss Eddleston and welcome to the very first lesson in your new history topic for this half term, the Heroic Home Front, which is all about Fareham during World War II. Now while you've been away from school this weekend, we've been having a good clear out and Mr Harris happened to come across this very ancient looking suitcase while clearing out a cupboard at school. He managed to get it open and do you know what we found inside it? We found a set of pictures that seemed to be very old. We need you to be detectives to try to work out when these photographs may have been taken and where. For historians, this is what we call a primary source, as it's a real picture taken at the time, so it's a real source from the past. What clues can you spot in the pictures? What time do you think they were taken? Where do you think this might have been? And what might life have been like at this time? Let's take a look at the photographs that we found. Here's the first photograph. What do you notice about the uniform that the girls are wearing or the hairstyles? What decade do you think this photograph might have been taken in? Looking at the next photograph that we found in the suitcase, what activity do you think the girls are taking part in here? And I want you to pay special attention to the building around them. Is there anything familiar that you notice? In this next picture, look very, very carefully at the roof and the windows in the background of this building. Have you seen these somewhere before? What do you imagine is going on in this next picture? And look very, very closely at those railings and the pillars in the background. Do you recognise anything? The next photograph has been taken from the air. Look at the top middle of the photograph. Do you recognise that building? Have you seen those playing fields somewhere before? In this last photograph that was taken in the past, look very carefully at the clue of the brickwork and the pillar and the drain pipe in the background. Where might this photograph have been taken? Now it's time to look a little bit more closely at the clues that we saw, the pillars, the windows, those slanted slate roofs and railings, the old-fashioned PE kits and classroom windows, downward sloping playground and children doing their daily exercise outside, the square-looking building with the hall running through the middle and playing fields to the left-hand side. Time to do some careful thinking. What ideas have these clues from the primary sources of the photographs given you? Where do you think these photographs were taken? When do you think they were taken? And what can you deduce about life at this time? Do you recognise it now? Did you manage to spot the clues from the past to work out where these photographs were taken? You're right, it was none other than our very own school, Harrison Primary School, 90 years ago when it first opened in 1930. Mr Harris is going to be telling us more about the history of our building and some of the secret places that most children never get to see. Look carefully as he takes us around to see if you can spot the similarities and differences between the old photographs we've looked at and how the building is today. You're going to need to get the sheet for this task from the Google Drive, which looks like this. As you're watching Mr Harris's history tour, just ponder on these questions. Where were these photographs taken? He's going to take us round and point out all of the clues. What are the children in these photographs doing? And how do our lessons look different today? Think about the school uniform. How is this different? And what do you think the school would have been like at this time? Why are there only girls in most of these photographs? Mr Harris is going to tell us more about it. And also, look carefully at these buildings on the field. What were they used for during the war? Listen carefully to Mr Harris's tour and you'll find out. Where was this photograph taken? And why isn't that tennis net there now? And then finally, I want you to think about the most interesting differences that you've spotted between the school building in the past and how it's used today. Enjoy the history tour, Year 4.
So what you know of the history?
Well, the history of Harrison Primary School, basically the school was built in 1930. The bricks used were known as Fareham Reds, and that will become more apparent as we walk around. Now at the moment we are in Year R. Now Year R was mainly the metalwork room and the woodwork room when it was an all-boys school. When the all-boys school were closed down and it became a mixed school, they then become teaching areas. So we go through to the middle classroom.
Lots of you will recognise this because this might have been your classroom when you were in Year R.
I was talking to a very elderly gentleman that used to go to school here, and he tells me that this fireplace was where the old furnace, they had a small furnace that they used to heat the metal up
Yep.
to shape into different objects. We have got a set of gates. Again, a gentleman that came to school here many years ago has told me that the gates were actually made in the school, and as we do our small tour, I can show exactly where these gates are.
This is real evidence, though, isn't it, of
yes.
history from another time, because there's this old mantelpiece and fireplace you wouldn't expect to find in a modern school.
I believe this is one of the first parts of the school that was actually built. So it took several months to build the school, so Year R is a little bit in front as far as age is concerned.
Look, there we can see a little bit of evidence that it did used to really
that's where the old funnel used to go up to
be a
take
chimney.
all the chimney away, all the chimney gases.
Interesting. Okay, where to next, Mr. Harris?
So next we will go down into the main office area.
Okay.
Now, with the office area, just to give you a bit of history there, back in the early 1980s, it was unfortunate that we had a fire. And the whole of the top end of the office was destroyed, along with this classroom here.
Do we know how the fire started, Mr. Harris?
Yes, we do actually. I've been told that two young lads decided to break into the school, and to try and hide the fact that they had broken into the school, they decided to set fire to it.
Oh no.
So by setting fire to the school, obviously there was a lot of damage done to the top end of the school, including the nurture room, and obviously where Year 3 is at the moment.
I'm seeing the back of it there.
So we had to have terrapins, or temporary buildings, set up on the main playground. Unfortunately, I can't actually get into the roof space because it's a restricted area, but in the roof space, within the office area, you've still got the charred roof rafters.
Right.
Which is a shame. I'd love to have shown them, but unfortunately we can't get up there. But they're still up there to this day.
Right, and that was about 40 years ago, I guess, that
Early part of the 80s, that was.
Right.
So basically, I believe the office used to be there, and I know that this used to be the toilet area. So the whole of this was destroyed, along with all the records of pupils, etc.
Yep.
If that's where I need to get up, if I can get up into the loft space there.
I've never noticed that before.
You can clearly see up there the charred roof rafters.
Right. Because all of this is a suspended ceiling sort of thing, isn't it? So above there is a whole nother layer to the school that we don't normally get to see.
You just unfortunately can't get up there. It's such a shame because I'd love to have shown it. So, what have we done over the years? Corridors. When the school was first built, the corridors were all open. So, if you just outside Y6T, you've got the steps that lead you down, lead you up. None of this was here. The corridors were completely wide open, and what you would have had here is a cast iron handrail. So over the years, everything's got boxed in. We also discovered about 3 years ago, when we had these lower carpets renewed, with new, as the carpets were being taken up, we come across the original foot slabs, which was about 18 inches by 18 inches. They are the original foot slabs that would have been used, because none of this would have been open, all this would have been open. The only thing that we would have had here was a sloped roof.
Right.
But where the pillars are, which are these...
They're original, aren't they?
These, yes. Obviously, behind these metal shields is the original pillars.
Are the classroom doors original?
The classroom doors are all original.
That really was here in 1930, but you would have stepped out of that door and been outside.
Yeah, you would have stepped straight outside into the open air. So all the classroom doors are original doors.
Amazing that they've lasted that long.
If you walk along here, what you know now is the nurture room, and I can show you now, used to be, and we only discovered this by chance, if you take that off, the nurture room used to be the original staff room.
Wow.
So to give you some idea of size, and we compare this with our existing staff room, that used to be the staff room, which is a lot smaller than what we have today.
There would have been a lot fewer staff.
Yep.
wouldn't there, for
A
them
lot
to
fewer
fit in
staff.
this small room in comparison to, we have about 60 people who work
Yeah.
here now, don't we, in this
So
space?
this was originally the staff room, and the only thing that's really changed in the staff room is obviously when we've had the toilets built the other side, they put this stud wall in, so it would have gone back that way,
Oh, I see.
only by about 3 feet.
Yeah, so the toilets wouldn't have been there
No.
originally.
So the toilets would have been there. The quad, this is the large Christmas garden, that was used as a communal area. I believe, because my dad went to school here, when my dad was alive he told me much about the school. Certain like PE activities etc. used to happen out there, because when my dad came to school it was purely a boys' school. When it became a boys' and a girls' school, what was interesting, the girls, they spent all their time at the bottom end of the school, and the boys spent all the time at the top end of the school. It then went to a secondary school, and then from a secondary school it then became to what it is today, which is a primary school. So that was purely a communal area.
For doing outdoor PE and activities
yeah.
like that.
Stuff like that. Harrison Primary School is very unique because we have the way the roofs are designed in the halls, because they've got that slope. And I've been told that the school is very unique to have that design roof, because there's just none around anymore. So that is a very special part of the school.
And that's because the school is so old.
Yeah, we're now into our 90th year. So all this would have been open, including this. This wouldn't have been here. This is now the staff room. So you'd have walked out the classroom. None of this would be here.
You'd have been straight into the outside.
Exactly. What was out there, and I can show you this as we go around, was the tennis court.
Right, so we
So-
can see this is
Yeah.
where the sort of roof part ended, because these
Yeah.
blue pillars here
These are the
original.
Yeah, they are original pillars.
but a wall has been built between them
Yeah,
to
we'll
close
do
in.
it. So this hasn't always been the staff room. This was built as a classroom, and the classroom, as you can see, is on 2 different levels. You've got the lower level, you've got the top level. Beyond the classroom, you have the kitchen. Now, one of my cleaners has told me that her husband built the kitchen, which was built in the early 60s.
Right, so 30 years after the school
Yeah.
first opened, they had to build the
had to
kitchen
build
and
the
this
kitchen.
area on.
Yeah, so they built the kitchen, they built this on. This was primarily a teaching area. It is now the staff room. Compared to what we had as a staff room, you can see it's a lot bigger.
It is. I wonder if we'll be able to see any difference in the bricks outside, so we can see that this part of the school is newer and not the same age of brickwork that we have on the original building.
Obviously, the internal brickwork is going to be a slightly different colour because it's not open to the elements. But what we do have, these are what's called as Ferrum Reds. These were originally made in Funtley, which is just down the road. How do we know this? You'll see very soon. But as you go to the back of the school where the car park is, the brick suddenly changed to a grey colour. That was added on at a much later date. I'm not sure when it was added on, but it was added on at a much later date.
At the bottom part of the school.
Bottom part of the school,
Right.
So, if we make our way along the year 2 corridor, I'm going to take you outside, because at some stage throughout the school's history, we've had little markings scratched into the brickwork.
Yeah, you can see some evidence of little bits
Yes.
of graffiti and things, can't
So
you?
you've got there is somewhere there's one here with a date on it.
MM. I wonder who that could have been.
So you have up here, you've got ML 1949. Now, no one's actually put that out, but we just found them by chance. We also know, and I know this is true because my dad was born in Wallington, that there was a path that was just the other side of these walls. And that path would take you from what we know as Fareham Town Centre all the way down to Wallington Village.
Right.
But obviously, as the years have gone on, the houses to the back of us have obviously bought the additional land,
Yeah.
and the path's been lost. The very end house where the black fence is, they've still got the original path. Unfortunately, we can't see it because it's fenced off. But that path used to run along here, through the back of that garden, all the way down to Wallington Village.
Wow. You can see just the age of this wall, can't
yes.
you? This must have been put up at the same time as the school,
Yeah.
but because it's outside, it's really weathered, isn't it?
Yeah. So, if we go in here, I'm going to take you through to what's known as the U1 quad. That's basically where the tennis court used to be. Now we know it was a tennis court because obviously we found photographs in books that relates to the school. Plus we've got some evidence out there that proves it was a tennis court.
Right, let's go and have a look at some of that historical evidence now.
So, excuse me.
Okay.
If you can imagine, when this was first built, you never had the kitchen. So that went right the way back to that original corridor.
Yeah, so we can see that this kitchen building here was added on, and if we just follow the roof line down and the roof line behind it, that's where the school building was. So that bit there is newer.
What we have is over in this far corner, we have the original footing that took the tennis court net. So basically, the tennis court net would sit in that and would run to the opposite side.
It must have been huge. It was a full-size tennis court then.
Obviously, back in those days, they never had this ramp. They never had that drain going through.
No, that's all new, isn't it?
Added on. So this was the tennis court.
Yeah. So, the line where the gutter is now would have been the line where the net would have gone right across.
I've also been told and led to believe that the railings to the steps leading into the large hall part was made here in the metalwork room that we spoke about earlier.
Well, they are quite fancy, aren't they? I don't know if anybody's ever noticed this.
I know this because I was talking to a very elderly gentleman who was in his
detail here.
Went to school here, and he has told me that these were actually made in the school.
Right.
The actual male pupils made these, and they installed them.
Just goes to show what sort of secondary school curriculum looked like back then.
So obviously over the years, the school's grown, we've added things on. We all know about the canopy, we all know about the stage now. All the windows, they're all original.
Yeah.
Nothing's been replaced.
So they are the real windows that were there
windows.
In 1930.
The original tiles on the roof. None of that's changed.
Such a high building, isn't it, the hall?
It is.
We're going to have a little look at some other parts, aren't we, that perhaps the children haven't seen before.
If I take you down to what is the skit office, what was interesting was just walking around one day now, and I know some of the pupils have actually seen this. We've got some brickwork. Obviously, when the bricks were first made, and the bricks were still damp, somebody's walked on them. And how do we know this? Is because if you look at that, there's a paw print. So something's actually walked on that brick.
While it's been soft before the clay's
soft.
set. Oh wow, the children can come and really see that.
And how we know that the bricks were made in Funtley is if I take you out the back, you see the word Funtley, British. That tells us that the bricks were actually made in Funtley, which is about, what, half a mile to a mile away from here?
Yeah, real local.
A real local brick.
Very interesting. I never noticed that before, Mr. Harris.
No.
I don't look up when I walk through this doorway.
And if you come outside, you'll see the different coloration in the brickwork. Again, if you go round, you can see where former pupils have actually scraped on the wall, but the bricks are a different colour. So we know that this was added on at a later date.
Do you think this space has always been a car park, Mr. Harris?
I don't really know. I don't actually know the answer to that question.
Because it looks very much like there's a door going up to the wall out
There
there.
used to be a door there years ago.
Old etchings
So
from...
there's etchings.
Gosh, they must have spent a long time standing here to be
yeah.
able to scratch that in the brickwork. That must have taken a while.
What was interesting as well, and again I'll show you as we go around, but at the moment is how well built the school was. Certain things that we found. Now we're in the main car park. The actual gates which are to the bottom of the car park, this very dear gentleman that came in one day because he asked me to look around because there was a former pupil, he explained to me that those gates were made in that metalwork room, and he was one of the pupils that actually helped make those gates.
And they're still there now?
They're still there today. These years on, they're still there today. Yes, so if you walk along the car park, there was a door there. Now,
How do we
had that
know?
door taken away, obviously when we had some work done. We've left the step.
Yeah, you can see it's a stairway to nowhere.
Yeah. So that door originally, this behind here was originally the old stock room. We think it must have been used as a classroom. In fact, we know it was used as a classroom. And this was a way in and a way out. So you can see the door, all the new brickwork, still got the cell. So this is brand new. Now, if we take you inside, we're going to the training room where we discovered something very special. If I move that now, if I get you my torch, all right?
Yep.
Show them Harrison's secret room. I'll quickly explain what's going on.
Secret room.
Now, 5 years ago, this July, we had a lot of work done at the lower end of the school. So we're now in the training room. When they took the old ceiling down, the contractor come and got me because we discovered we've got a secret room that not many people know about. So, Miss Eggleston, who's holding the camera, is going to kindly walk up the ladder with a torch
And the camera.
and and show you the secret room.
Okay. Right.
Now, as you walk up, you will see two little bars coming out. We know that is where a step ladder was placed.
Okay.
We think the room is used for storage.
See that? Is everybody ready for this?
Do you want to hold that?
That's all right. I reckon I'll get up
It's a
there.
little bit tight,
Oh, I'm up.
but we decided to keep it
Oh,
as it's part of the history of the school.
wow.
But we believe that it was used as a storage area.
If I try to show you, it doesn't look very big on this side, but then
If, you show
if
the
I
rest of
turn
the room,
around,
it's quite a big area.
it's huge. It's a massive, great big room. I mean, it's all of the eaves, isn't it, of the school up here.
What's quite unique as well, the actual roof is made, and it's all tongue and groove, or what they call shitlap.
And what did you find up here, Mr. Harris, when you
we
came up for
found
the first time?
We found some textbooks going back to the 1940s. Unfortunately, they seem to have got mislaid, which is a shame. We also found a number of the old-fashioned milk bowls, glass milk bowls.
Glass milk
The
bottles
days
and
when
textbooks.
the pupils had free milk.
It's like a time capsule.
It was like a time capsule. It was quite surprising we found that there.
I'm coming down.
You right?
Yeah.
Potato torch.
It's all right, I've got it.
So
Thank you.
basically, what we had for everyone who wasn't here when this was built, behind that wall was the food tech. So we had that area split in two. So you've now got you've got the kitchenette there. Behind that door was the toilets. That would have been the old storage area. If we go along,
This was a classroom, wasn't it?
This
When I
was a
first
classroom,
came
yes,
here, it was
this-
just a normal classroom.
Yeah.
And one of the strangest things, I suppose, that I thought when I first came here, because I've never worked in a school that's so old before, is why we've got windows in the classroom leading out into the corridor. But now I guess we know why, because it was windows straight to the outside
it was
before.
all open. There was nothing here. None of this was here. This has all been added on over the years. And obviously the roof's been put in place. So basically you used to walk out of a classroom into the open air.
Yeah.
Down here, which is now the skit office, that was the old kiln room. We used to have a kiln in there where we used to fire the clay. So basically, that was, they put the doorway in for us, and obviously they made the opening at the front, so we made it from a kiln room into an office area now.
Yeah.
Obviously the den,
It's one of the only classrooms left, really, that's still got
but that used to be the art room when I first come.
yeah, I remember it being the art room.
Yeah.
It's still got the high ceiling that
Yeah.
a lot of other classrooms in the school don't have, and the original coving that goes around the top and the
Well,
high
actually, believe it or not, the
windows.
ceilings used to be a lot higher than that.
Really?
They've been added on because if you go above that, you've got what you've just seen in that training room. You've got the old, and then basically where the rafters is, that would have been boarded, so the ceilings would have been a lot higher than that. But as the years have progressed, obviously they've come lower.
All this old original brickwork has just been painted, hasn't
What's
it, Mr.
interesting
Harris?
about this is, if you look at the height of the hall to the height of the ground that we're now standing on, so there would have been, these steps would have been here, but there's obviously no carpet. because you're looking from outside inside. So again, they are the original doors. And you can clearly see that this is the original lock. So at the end of the day, the caretaker would have had to lock it up.
Oh yes, because it would have just led straight to the outside.
It would have led straight to the
It
outside.
must have been freezing in this school in the winter.
Yeah, it wasn't very warm, I can imagine.
No.
But just stood where we are, you can see the different heights.
Yeah.
Because the school, believe it or not, is actually built on two different levels.
We're going to have a look at how we can see what's evidence of that still to this day.
Right, in here, I'm going to move a few things out.
Mr. Harris will just move the Hoover.
What we discovered when we was having some work done, we found a pit, which is just under there. Now in that pit we found old-fashioned milk bottles. I even found an old Fruity bit down there.
It's huge. This massive amount of space under the whole floor. It goes down quite deep, full of rubbish. What's this way when we look? See the under the old floorboards and things like that.
So we are now in Mrs. Lancaster's class.
In
Now
year
again,
4?
when this was built, or when this was the work again was done 5 years ago, they took this wall down. When they took the wall down, they took the ceiling away. What they discovered above the ceiling was a bracket, and unfortunately it's no longer there. But the bracket is what the old-fashioned chalkboard would sit on. So today we have the computerised touch screens. Back in those days, they had the chalkboard that would hang from a bracket on the wall.
Ah, so this was the original wall where
This
we're
is
looking.
the original wall.
And behind this part
This
was actually in the next classroom along.
Yes, which was a classroom,
Yeah.
later to become the stock room, later to become my office. So basically, when we had the build done, everything moved 1.5 meters that
Way. Yeah.
So by taking the old ceilings down, we've discovered quite a lot of stuff that's up there that nobody knew about.
And a lot of the history of the
Yeah.
original building.
I think these were done. So, here we are in the music room. Now, what a lot of people don't realise is the music room hasn't always been the music room. The music room used to be the boys and girls toilets. So, I think I've been told around about 2000, early 2000, they decided the school wanted the music room. Hence why the toilets were taken away. I can take it outside because you can see where the original toilet windows were. We now have the year 4 boys and girls toilets,
Yeah.
just outside the door, which took over from these.
Okay. Let's go and see the evidence.
So as we go outside, you will clearly see
Oh yes.
we have the original pipe work running out of here and here, and that
That was
one,
the toilet windows.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the original toilet windows.
Is that why there's a door around the other side
Yes.
as well? Well, there's no door now, but there looks like once upon a time.
Hence why that door has been filled in.
Yes. Maybe.
That was the original toilets.
Ah.
And a lot of people, yeah, I've got this one for you. CM 1985. Another bit of history.
Another bit of carved history on our
you've got someone
building.
here with a name Andy. You've got another name there.
Is that you, Mr.
No, it's not me. My name's Frank. We've got one here called Ellis or Celis.
C. Ellis.
C.
I
Ellis.
suppose we can tell the height of the children, can't we? So
Oh,
these
yeah.
must have been secondary school pupils or
Yeah.
naughty teachers.
Got another one along here. Just slowly, they've got another one here. Looks like something 1985.
Let's hope none of our children do that.
So that was the boys and girls toilets.
Never ever noticed that before, Mr. Harris.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In this classroom, which is year Y6G, you have Y5S directly behind.
Yep.
That wall used to have a garage door. So you never had that stud wall, you used to have a garage door.
Let me just stand back so we can see. I can kind of just make out what you're saying.
And the reason behind it, apparently, as I've been told, is if they wanted the two classes to mix, they used to open the garage door. And there was a number of classrooms throughout the school that used to have the garage door.
So that children could go through
Yes.
between the two, and then they'd shut it
Yes.
when they wanted privacy. Oh yeah, and you
So
can
that's
just...
where the what we call as the Harrison garage door. And there were several in throughout the site.
Thank you.
Class, you have the library. Now a lot of people think the library's always been here. That's not true. The library, I've got to keep looking every time, was actually built April 2003.
Yeah.
So 2003, where I'm stood now, I would have been stood in the quad. This formed part of the quad, or Christa's Garden. So basically, the library was built out onto Christa's Garden. So we had the space, we built the library. So I'm now
Again,
stood
you can
in
see
what
the
would have been
pillars.
Christa's Garden.
Yes. So all of this
All
roof
of this
space
is
is
brand
new
new.
and added on.
Yeah, so it's over 20 years old.
But you can see the original 1930s pillar to the
Yeah,
outside.
everywhere you go in the store,
is-
you
is
can
here.
see the pillars. You can't take the pillars down because actually they keep the roof up.
Yeah, they're holding the roof up, aren't
Yeah, they actually hold the roof up. Now what we'll do, we'll take a little walk outside because, just recently celebrating VE Day, Harrison Primary School played their part in the wall, and that was the field we used as an army camp. And it was there for quite some time. I'm not sure at this point, I'm still trying to find out what regiments was there. The school was still operational whilst the army camp was actually placed on the field. So Harrison Primary School played a great part during the war years. I do know as well, from talking to people that came to school here all those years ago, that when the war was over, there was a big celebration out in the playground. I think it was like a street party type thing.
Yeah.
Also, when we had the fire up there in the office area, the playground had porta cabins, because obviously we had to move the children out. So this is all porta cabins through here.
Is the PE shed original? Is that a 1930s
the PE
building?
shed, I believe, went in around about 2000.
Right.
What I do know, where the tyre park is, and I know this for a fact after looking at pictures, used to be at the back of the Mugger pitch. You see a brand new area of tarmac there. That used to be a big planter. So we wanted to make the playground larger, so we decided to have the planter removed. So where you can see this new dark area of tarmac,
Oh, I've never noticed it before.
that's where there was a planter.
So do you mean a big raised flower bed?
It's a big raised flower bed.
And it was this big?
It was this big.
It's huge.
You know, it's huge. So you can see how much. You can see exactly
Just how much playground space
Yeah.
it was taking up. I've never noticed before
So
that this
before-
part was darker.
So we never, before the pathway was put in, here where the Mugger pitch sits is where the tyre park used to be. But the tyre park is now over there.
And where were the army camp buildings
The army
situated?
camp buildings we know for a fact were situated on the field.
They were running sort of up the side there
it.
by the trees and along the back of our field.
right.
And the children would have still been out on the playground, I'm
Yeah.
guessing, for part of it whilst the
I
army
also
did their
believe
drills.
that the pond that we have was built around about the mid 1990s. So compared to the school, it's still very young.
Yeah.
But you can see the size of the school. You can also see where the office is, new brickwork. There's the door there.
Yes.
So that would have led
You
into
can see the door.
The door.
Never noticed that before either. As I get closer on the video, you can see the old doorway.
And the question I'm asked all the time is, what's this for?
Yeah, what is that for?
What it is, back in the 1930s, the heating was run by coal. And they used to open that up and pull the coal. And they used to go down a chute, and every morning and throughout the day, somebody would go down there and shovel the coal into the burners to produce heat that goes around the glass.
Ah, and that's down those set of spooky stairs.
It was then taken away, and they went over to oil. So the oil was pumped in through there, and then back in the late 80s, early 90s, they went across to gas. So hence why you've gone from that to that. It's a gas pipe.
Ah, I see.
So that's now what feeds the boilers.
And keeps us warm in the
Keeps it
winter.
warm. So originally this is where the coal went. Straight out. I don't even know. They can't open. It's been sealed off.
And it would have gone underneath Mrs. Gomiciewicz's office
Right underneath
here.
Mrs. Gomiciewicz's office.
Shall I have a little look down there?
So we've gone into a chute.
So if we open this gate, Harris, boot it open for me.
Excuse the mess. I've got to sweep it up.
Downstairs here.
So basically, we've all been collected down there somewhere. And then somebody had to shovel it from there into the boiler room.
Yeah, that's the boiler room.
So you're probably talking about 2 or 3, maybe 4 visits per day. And they would have to come in on a Sunday to flash up the burners.
Yeah.
But as you can see on the wall, there's the word oil on. So basically, when they went from coal, they went across to oil. And that tells us that the oil was flowing. So basically, the oil was flowing into the boiler room.
Mm-hmm.
So now we burn on gas.
It looks like the gate was in a different place at some point because
Yes,
I
I
can see
think you could be right there.
another lock still on the wall,
Yeah.
all covered in horrible cobwebs and things. But yeah, there must have been another gate right at the bottom of these stairs.
Now, what is interesting about the site is that one thing that people always forget about, and I always talk to the children about this, the school's 90 years old. If you look at the trees that we've got, they're a lot older. And I always say, think of the stories of people tell. Think of what they've seen that we haven't. If a tree can talk, you'd be amazed at what it's seen over the years.
What it's seen over the years and the
I look at
changes
it
in
and I think,
Fareham.
especially with this year being, with the VE celebrations, with our 90th anniversary, the school has survived the Second World War. The school's seen many changes over the years. But if those trees could talk, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
It would really be amazing. This is why we try to keep hold of what we've got in the school and look after it.
Because it's part of the history
It's part of the history.
of our school, and not for many more generations of children
yeah.
who are going to come through it. I mean, how many
Exactly.
thousands of children have been educated at Harrison
Exactly.
Primary School now over the years, and many more will.
My dad went to school here, which is in the late 30s. There was nowhere near those numbers.
Yeah.
So obviously over the years the school's grown in numbers. School grows, more staff have to be taken on. But it's a lovely building, it really is.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
No problem, only too happy to do it.
Now that we've seen Mr. Harris's history tour, go back to your sheet that you found on the Google Drive and see what information you can fill in. Good luck with your history learning this week, Year 4. See you next week.